From plagues to hurricanes and murky waters trying to pull the city down, death has been a constant companion from the very beginning of New Orleans. It's reflected in the culture, the music, and the art. Why people are drawn here, stay here, a deep-rooted magic that no other city can claim. Stories grow like Spanish moss here, steeped in the supernatural, intertwined with dying and death. The city has inspired a plethora of fiction, but the true tales are even more compelling and heartbreaking. The challenges of New Orleans bred deep roots of faith. In the past, European settlers clung to Catholicism, but the displaced African people birthed a new religion, born as they could not openly practice their faiths. This resulted in a combination of traditional African folk practices and faith blended with Catholicism, voodoo. Despite the fascination with voodoo modern society has, it is often deeply misunderstood and misrepresented, and should be respected as any faith. Companion to voodoo is the magical practice of hoodoo, and to be Hugon or Mambo of New Orleans voodoo, one must be from the roots of enslaved black ancestors. Local shop Queenly Conjure creates healing teas and tisanes based on African rooted folk practices, and as well, Crescent City Conjure is both a place of practice and education regarding hoodoo locally, both worth taking the time to understand for this unique faith. While the African people had to hide their traditions behind the veneer of Catholicism, the European settlers clung to their Catholic beliefs. However, there was one tradition they could not practice, which was burying the dead in holy ground. This led to interment in above-ground crypts, tombs, and mausoleums. To conserve precious space, the tomb is sealed with brick and mortar. Then when the mourning period and decay period have gone by, the space may be reused by simply removing the seal, separating the human remains from what's left of the casket, and replacing the remains back in the tomb. Historically, this tradition could be helpful during a time when medical knowledge had not stretched to understand deep comas. Tombs and coffins were outfitted with quote-unquote safety bells, so should an accidental entombment occur, night watchmen would hear the bell ringing. That said, after some days without nutrition or sunlight, it's thought these quote-unquote risen dead gave way to stories of zombies and vampires. There's a similar link with this vein, excuse the pun, of the story of the quote-unquote casket girls. The Ursulines convent seen here is said to have housed these casket girls, and some claim there's still chains on the top floor to this very day that held them. It is certainly a story worth diving into. Oh, and lest we forget the most famous vampire of New Orleans. No, not Lestat, the Comte de Saint-Germain. Legend tells that Saint-Germain arrived in the early 1900s. Handsome and extravagant, he threw lavish parties with the finest of food, which he never ate a bite of. Over the years, he didn't seem to age past 40, and there's at least one documented story of a young woman who threw herself off his balcony after getting bitten so deeply he drew blood. While we'll never know what happened to her, it is said that some have seen the Comte wandering the quarter to this very day. The last local death ritual here is perhaps one of the most beloved, the second line. In the mid-1860s, after emancipation, several black organizations sprung up to support the community, including the Société d'Économie. The society was a major support in helping their community, including their arrangements of funerals. With time, the society felt that the somber affairs of walking with their dead did not reflect the celebration of life they wanted. It was decreed the family should walk with the loved one, that's the first line, or the mourners, and that the rest of the organization should parade behind and dance along with celebratory music, specifically a brass band. With time, the tradition of the second line led to pleasure and social clubs coming together to celebrate outside of funerals, but local communities continue to celebrate their loved ones, waving their hankies and umbrellas to announce to heaven, they are coming. Most recently, the city gave permission for writer and local New Orleanian Anne Rice to have a second line. Locals and fans came out in droves to guide the ceremonial carriage along its route. It's important to remember and understand that the second line is locals walking side by side with death. Knowing how short that journey is what makes the magic of this ritual so special. And always understanding where the ritual came from and respecting that magic is even more so. All of these traditions are ones with deep roots, and as you find yourself falling in love with them, use that energy to look to your own roots. After all, if we know where we came from, we can best step forward to where we're going. Oh, and welcome in, friends. We'll be dancing with you soon.